Okay, I'm recording. You guys can unmute and go ahead and get started.
All right, can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Flip the presentation, Francisco.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah. All right, so my name is Francisco Estrada, and this.
Francisco.
Hey, can you hear me?
You're presenting it wrong.
What do you mean? Oh, the screen?
Yeah.
The other one? Oh, sorry. How about now? All right. All right, let's start. Hello, everyone. My name is Francisco Estrada, and here is Christian Mendoza.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And we are part of the Takeoff team at Fremont. And for those who don't know us, we recently joined to the team. We have been working for Walt for about 7 months now. And today we're going to talk about our training. And just feel free to ask any question on the chat. Christian is going to be monitoring, or me while he's explaining or presenting. I'm going to be checking the chat. So feel free to ask any question.
So just an overview, we're going to talk about our presentation. We're going to talk about the different stages of our training. And then we're going to go over the material that was covered. And then in the end, we're going to talk about our training experience and just get feedback to Pedro and Eric on how we can make the training better for future people. Yeah. So next slide.
All right, so we had 3 stages of our training. The first one was introduction with Pedro. The second one was shop training, that we actually went to the shop. And the third one was the training with Eric. And then we're gonna talk about these 3 stages in a bit. And next slide, please.
Sorry about that. So the first stage, training with Pedro. So the training with Pedro was basically an introduction. He introduced us to all the material, you know. So for this training purpose, we use a pre-existing project, Riverside Model, as the backbone for the training. This is the project that Pedro used to train us the majority of the time. And here we have 6 topics that were most important, and I'm gonna be briefly talking about them. So the first topic, vocabulary. Of course, Pedro had to teach us the vocabulary. Without knowing the vocabulary, we won't be able to understand the system. So he taught us what a light is, you know, what a head is, what a glass bite, you know, all these terms that we're going to be using throughout our training. And then the next important topic is components of a unit. Pedro's taught us the components of a unit, you know, what is a unit? What components does it have? You know, it has a head, it has vertical seals, you know, a light. And then we went more in depth of different types of heads, different types of verticals. So he would give us an explanation of the different types of heads, different types of verticals, and then he will give us a task. He will open a shop drawing and be like, all right, go look for this specific head, you know, look for this vertical, look for this jam. And that's how he taught us about the different components of a unit. And then shop drawings. Eric and Pedro really emphasized the importance of being able to read a shop drawing. You know, shop drawing has a lot of information, and it was very important to them for us to be able to see all this information and understand it. So right here we have a snippet of elevation from the Riverside Model project, and it was just, and this is one elevation that Pedro used to teach us the importance of shop drawings. You know, he taught us all these dimensions that we see here. You know, what do they mean? You know, what does that triangle and circle mean? You know, he taught us that was wind load, that was dead load. He taught us that all these rectangles with an X on it, you know, each one of those is a unit. And then, of course, he taught us what these detail bubbles are, you know. These detail bubbles carry a lot of information. You click on it, it will give you the specific part in that section. And Pedro just taught us how to read that detail bubble and be able to see what type of part it is, you know, if it's a seal, all the components that are in it. And one thing that they're really emphasizing was being able to visualize how parts interact. So by opening a shop drawing and clicking on a detail bubble, let's say for a seal, would we be able to see how a vertical interacts with that seal? You know, would we be able to see where this vertical ends? Would we be able to see what if vertical is going to need a notch? So that was very important for them. And we recently worked in a project, Facebook Sons, with Bill, and Bill was very helpful in showing us more how to understand shop drawings. He opened the shop drawings for Facebook Sons. He drew in the parts and he showed us how these parts interacted, you know. So it helped a lot in being able to visualize it 2D and just show us how these parts interact. The next topic is AutoCAD. You know, AutoCAD is the system that we use. Me and Francisco are already familiar with AutoCAD, but Pedro introduced us how AutoCAD is used in this job. You know, it's used differently. We use the Takeoff program, which is the next topic. You know, in Takeoff, they taught us, you know, how to do glass, how to do metal takeoff, the importance of glass and metal takeoff. He also taught us about data input. He gave us a list of steps of how to correctly put or how to correctly do data input, and then he gave us a task. He would give us a unit and tell us input the data for this unit, and then draw out the taglines and make sure it works. You know, it was trial and error. That's how we learned about data input. We also went in depth of a UD window. What is a UD window? You know, how to do layouts, adjustments, of course, how to find adjustments. We spent time in the installation manual to see how do we get adjustments and what's the purpose of these adjustments. We also learned about the unit drawings, the purpose of unit drawings and how they created, you know, all these taglines. How is the taglines tied back to the UD window, you know? So yeah, these are a few topics that we learned. And then finally, the most important was fabrication tickets. After all, this is what me and Francisco will be doing once we're done with training. So we spend the majority of our time learning about fabrication tickets, what's the purpose of fabrication tickets, and why we make them. We learned how to create notches in the fab tickets. You know, we learned that we should not always create notches. We can always look them up. There's two ways of looking them up, a portal or an S drive. We learned how to create holes, you know, different types of hole clearance, pilot hole. And then we learned how to do notes, you know, feature notes, when to time to the part, when not to. And then we also learned about the different types of clips. You know, we have A parts, clips, AP tags. Pedro taught us how to be able to tell what type of clip is already being used in the fab, you know, if it's by looking at little clues. You know, we have the chart on the left side, we have a chart on the right side. You know, there's different clues that would let us know what type of clip is being used. So, of course, Pedro taught us a lot more stuff than just these few topics that I'm covering, but these were the most important. So, yeah, that was the training with Pedro. And now we're going to move on to our next stage, which is shop training.
All right, so the second stage of the training consisted in going to the shop. It took place at the Shop B here in Fremont. We spent 2 weeks learning by observing and putting hands on into basically we were operating the CNC machines and working with the workers hand in hand. The first week we spent in the fabrication line, and during the week we split the days. For every single day we were working in a different machine, so we can have the experience for every single machine. And then we got the opportunity to operate them, and then we were looking also at the fab tickets, and see how the workers are reading the fab tickets. So I think this is one of the main purposes as well, to going to have this training. And while we were working on looking at the FAT tickets, we were able to add the gaskets, the hood locks, and bayonets, or angles, or whatever the FAT ticket was showing that the part has to have. And also, we were making sure that all the parts has the correct cut sizes, because like sometimes even the machines can it's super rare, but it can happen that maybe it didn't have the correct cut size. But all these things we gotta like pay a lot of attention on it. We gotta make sure all the parts were put in on where basically all the part has to be ready for the assembly line. One of the important aspects of the training was that we have constant communication with the workers. So with the purpose of do the job correctly and don't do like mistakes on it, and also to have to build a relationship with them. As Pedro was mentioned to us, they are basically the next in line of the process, and then they are our clients. So it's good to get to know them and ask questions, and so we can improve the process with them, and also if we can improve, and eventually in future projects, now we know like with who to talk, and that was a really good experience for the fabrication line. And the second week, it was the unit assembling. It's basically, it was kind of similar to the fabrication line. We split the days and the different areas that the assembly line has. The first one was the assembling the unit. So we put the part together, and we were looking at the unit assembly drawings. So just to check that all the parts were there, and then we're not missing anything. And once we build the unit, we send the unit to the glass installation. We also make sure the glass didn't have any crack, or even we had to clean it and just place it like carefully to the unit. Then we moved to the caulking area and the packing area. The caulking area was a little bit dirty, and the packing, we put in all the units in pallets and wrap them, and just put notation on the pallets so it can be sent to the field. And overall, this was a good experience because we get to see all the parts and basically look at the FAT tickets and compare with the real life parts. And then to me, I could visualize how long it could be like a bird or even like a unit. We had experience to see even doors, and they were pretty big and heavy. That was a really good experience. I think that was key for us to retain the knowledge that we have from Pedro. And yeah, that was the overall about the shop training. And then when I move into the training with Eric, this is the third stage that we have in our training. We were basically putting everything that we learned from Pedro and from the shop and put it into the practice now. Just basically now working in projects and putting the knowledge that we learned. Eric gave us assignments to work in pre-existing projects, and while we were working, we were facing maybe we didn't understand exactly maybe like why a bird's looking this way or the variations of the unit, and then we were always asking Eric. And also when we were working on the project, we finished the project or the assignment, and Eric would check on us and see what we're missing or what we did wrong. And once we realized something was wrong, Eric gave us a lecture about it, and then we just go ahead and fix the issue. And that's the way that we will keep learning. We went to fab mostly. We were looking at fabs and looking at notches, and also we got the chance to input data and look at dimensions, just as Christian was explaining. And one of the assignments that we had was work on tech walls. We learned about tech walls by working at a pre-existing project at Santa Clara University. And And then once we understand it, one of the tasks that we have was to make the data input look more clean. As you can see in the left picture right here, it was like how the tech walls data input was for the conditional area prior use. And you can see it has numbers and then it has letters just to identify the condition. And you can see on the right side that now it's a little bit cleaner. It looks more, as everyone is more familiar with that. And we let the program derive the condition for us and just look more clean. So maybe we can use it in future tech wall projects. That's one of the assignments that we have. And like I said, when we were working in this type of assignments, we were facing new concepts such as the door units. We were working at the CSULA project, and we were checking fabs, but there were the part where there were some units in the project. So we started checking them. And at that point, Eric just gave us a lecture about what's the door, what are the conditions, what's the difference of just a regular unit and what it needs to have. So we have assignments for the units. That's the way that we learn how the units work. And then we move into the break shapes, and the same way we face break shapes, and Eric explained us how break shapes work. And then the last thing was the release process. We learned it by following Swiss with the help of Tony and Eric. We released our first project. That was the Facebook Sun. And that was basically what was the training with Eric. We put in everything that we learned into small assignments. And then we now start working in projects that basically help us to retain all the knowledge that we have in the previous trainings. And we're gonna talk about what we did next after like we kind of complete our training. And yeah, this is the next slide.
So post-training, so technically we're done with our training, but as Eric mentioned, it's gonna take a year or so to actually have a full understanding of the system. So yes, we're done with training. So now we were assigned to some projects. And these are two projects that we worked on, the CSULA student housing and the Facebook Suns. For the CSULA student housing, we just helped in speeding up the process. So we were just assigned with helping in the unit drawings and cleaning them up. For some reason, these unit drawings were coming out incorrect. They were off by 1/32, or just the dimensions are wrong. So our task was to go into the unit drawings, clean it up and make sure that dimensions are correct, and then fix up detail bubbles. And then, so yeah, that was our task for CSULA. And then Facebook Suns was our first real project from beginning to end. It was a small project. It was only 4 units, but it was our very first taste of a full project. So we were tasked with working on the units and on the fabrication tickets. And then this was our first experience working with the PC. We worked with Bill, and Bill was very helpful. He would give us a lecture for every unit and just give us feedback on how this unit's going to work, how our parts interacting, what parts are going to need notches, and what to look for. So that was very helpful. So it was our first job, but technically it was still a training experience. And since Bill still taught us a lot, like I mentioned, he taught us how to visualize parts in the shop drawings. So yeah, these were the 2 projects that we worked on since technically being done with training. And yeah, it was just another training experience. And now we're gonna talk about our training, our feedback for training on the next slide. So I'm gonna talk, like I mentioned in the beginning of our training, there was a lot of vocabulary. It was a little bit overwhelming, which was expected, this is something new to us. But I remember like the first half of the day, me and Francisco will be active and paying attention and just trying to absorb as much as we could. and then we would go to lunch and come back. And then once we came back, we were our brain was fried basically from so much information. So I would just suggest for future training purposes, do the same thing in the beginning, teach us the vocabulary and everything, but then like the second half of the day, give us a task. So let's say in the morning, you taught us how to tell apart different parts. You showed us what heads are, what seals are, the different types. Maybe in the afternoon, give us an assignment to look through shop drawings and look for different parts, or just small tasks to change the way that we're being trained, not just throwing vocabulary and concepts at us the whole day, because it's a little draining. The small assignments that were given to us through our training were very helpful. So that's why I'm suggesting we should do that. And then I know that this whole situation that we're in right now with coronavirus has definitely changed our training, I feel like we missed out on a little bit of our training because of this, but I mean, it's nothing that we could do. It's just the card we were dealt with, so we had to adapt. But I mean, I feel like I was definitely more productive in the office. The first couple of weeks, it was pretty hard to focus here at home. But I mean, it is what it is. We can't change that. And then, yeah, that was just my training experience and my feedback. And now we're going to hear from Francisco.
All right. So for me, overall, I really like the training. We have really good teachers. And also, like, I like a lot of things of the training. First thing that I really liked, it was really helpful to me to have an assignment right after we have a lecture. So basically, to me, it was helping me to retain the knowledge or the concepts that we were learning. That was really helpful, especially with Pedro. He was giving us a lot of information in the same as Christian. I feel like it was overwhelming sometimes. And yeah, it was hard to digest all and connect all the dots together. And even like later on when we were with Eric, like training with Eric, it was hard to connect the dots when we were working in more complex units like doors. To me, it was hard to connect. And then, well, we gotta like go back, and then Eric was explaining to us again what we learned with Pedro, just because I think that it was a lot of information. One thing that I will suggest as well, just as a feedback, it's that it would be good if we work in a documentation training. Like while we were basically having the lecture, we were taking notes, but we can't write as fast. Well, in my case, I can't write as fast as somebody's teaching me, right? But it would be great if we have, I don't know, maybe notes about data input, or just like how the units are, just for like new members, the team members. I think that would be really helpful, so we can come back, because sometimes I go back to my notes and I don't have like enough notes to like refresh what I was learning at that point. But I think that would be helpful that if we work in training notes or documentation, that would be great. Another thing that I would like to mention is that as a feedback as well, I think for me, it would work a lot if we have like a shadow training, like spend some time with someone in the team that are doing fabs, and maybe they're doing a job, and we can spend maybe 2 hours, 3 hours and see how they're doing their units or the way that they do it. And maybe we can ask questions while they're doing their job. And I think that would be really helpful. Just in my opinion, I learn it that way faster, because I don't know, that's the way I learn a lot faster. I like the way that Eric was approaching. He gave us a time to work in assignments, and every time that we have any question, he was there to help us and have another lecture over lecture. I think that's really helpful as well. Like we have some time where we can work and think and then figure it out by our own. And then once we get really stuck, then we ask the question. I think that's a way of retain the knowledge, but it just take time, and then it could be maybe sometime a waste of time. But I really like that part. I'm also aware that we were affected by the corona, but that's something we can do. Definitely, I wasn't productive when I recently moved to my house. Everything was a distraction, but later on, we just gotta adapt, right? The shop training, like I said before, it was really helpful. I think I wouldn't ask for more days, but not less either. I think 2 weeks was really good because we get to know the whole crew or the whole team over there, and then we got the experience to work, to even get dirty, to get tired, and just to talk with the workers. I think that was a good training experience. And I know that we haven't done yet, we're still learning, but I think at this point we can now be able to help, just the way that we did it, and the small projects or the work that we have with Facebook Sun. I think next step is for us to learn about machine programming. So Tony, here we go. Also, I just want to give thank you to everyone who took the time to train us and for being patient. And then overall, it was a good experience. We definitely can improve because there's always room to improvement. And yeah, this is our presentation and how we got trained, and hopefully we can keep learning. You guys have any question, or maybe you want us to talk about something about it, just unmute yourself or just write it in the chat.
I have a question on the training that you went through so far. Have you been exposed to Revit yet?
We did. We have an experience with Revit. We had the training with Revit, but also during with Pedro, we only have I feel just a briefly introduction with Revit, but no working directly to Revit, at all. Yeah.
Can I chime in on that one? So Bill, when we first did these training, right, it stemmed from even guys before Christian and Francisco. We picked jobs at the time, Riverside at the moment, right? And that's kind of when we first started the whole Revit thing. And then as we were going, we were still picking Riverside. And then, the way it's modeled, it's been, evolved so much, right? So we were experiencing issues with just picking old jobs when we should have just picked a newer job, or have, to me at least, a job dedicated to training newer members. Because I remember my experience when training, we had a dedicated job, right? And that's Watsonville. I'm sure everyone who's been here for a while knows about that job for training. So that was just my take on the whole Revit thing. We were just picking old jobs, and then it kind of just we were experiencing issues here and there.
All right. So anyone else has another question or something to add? I don't know.
Do you have any suggestions, as you're doing something new like this, you have sort of a new, unique perspective on things because you're fresh to the company. And a lot of times, we're used to doing what we do, so we're sort of just, everything kind of seems normal to us. But were there any things you saw in our processes that maybe seemed like they were hard or convoluted or hard to figure out? Are there things we should be looking at to improve what we do, that as you went through the training, you felt wow, this is really messed up here? So,
Well, that would be also a lot of talking by myself. To me, it was hard just the way to connect everything, because there was a lot of information. Like I say, there were the point where I already knew the concepts apparently, and then once I was applying them, it was just hard to connect them, and sometimes I feel that I forgot them. And I think that just the only way is just to keep practicing, probably have more assignments, and maybe just during the time I will for me it's gonna stick more. but I like having something that was really messed up. I think everything is clear for just as a concept. I think like everyone can understand it. Probably would take some time for me, for example, but maybe Christian, it would be like faster. Yeah, that would be my answer. I don't know, you Christian have another?
Yeah, I wouldn't say any process was difficult. It was more of us trying to understand it, and then once we would implement it more, then we will get a hang of it. So there is not any specific process that we were like thrown back and we're like, why is it like this and why isn't it not like this? So yeah, it was more of us just training what we were learning and just doing it over and over and then just learning it. Yeah.
Did we give you kind of some kind of graphic, big picture view of how all the pieces connect? Or did we kind of get into the detail early? Because some people, you know, like for me, I always learn better if I see the bigger picture, like how the whole thing, just in a broad way, like how does this all connect, right? How does the stuff in Revit, you know, how are we connecting this Revit information to this takeoff information, to this ticket information? Like, how does that flow? Like, did we give you kind of that bigger picture and then get into all the detail, or did we sort of start at the detail level and you had to connect it over time? You know what I mean?
I remember in the beginning, Pedro gave us a brief description of the whole process, you know, jumpstart, takeoff, and then the shop. So yeah, we were introduced to the whole process, but then it was very briefly. And then after that, we just went into the small details and learned like specific themes. And then we had to connect it throughout our training experience.
Good.
And one thing that really helped for us was actually the presentation that we're having on Thursday. That was really helpful to understand what's going on with the whole team and what they're doing. And now we know like where to go if we have questions related once we like start working in project. I think like it was really helpful to understand more the process, the whole takeoff process. Yeah, because at the beginning it was just like briefly, and probably we just have like a concept, but we didn't know exactly how it's done. And yeah, I think that was really helpful. So that was something that we can see the whole picture of what's going on.
Yeah, that might be actually something for new hires, is for us to put together a little video of the, you know, because it all ties into how the job site goes together, and really a lot of things you guys are doing is just to help the shop and the field be able to execute. So it might be good to have something you can see, like this is how the stuff arrives on the site, and this is a pallet, you know, that we lift them on the building like this, and kind of work your way back so you could kind of see why we do what we do. That helps. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like one of the things also what happened to me. Sometimes I hear like words when we were at the meetings, like engineering meetings, like I didn't understand like all the vocabulary. It was just like a new language. Just maybe because I'd never like heard that before, but I just gotta learn that. And once, I guess it's just over time, we'll get it. It will be easy to get it eventually.
Well, just one of the things that I was picking up from your discussion is makes me think about this book. It's Teach What You Know, and it's the fire hose and the bucket analogy. Your brain is like a bucket. It can hold so much information, and when you're in the beginning stages of training, it's like somebody's turning on the fire hose on you, and a lot of it splashes out of your bucket, so you don't really soak it all in. But you did reflect that if the training was set up in a way where you had some direct instruction as like a partial of the day, and then some training exercises that tied into that to reinforce that, like in the second part of the day, that could help to, you know, minimize how much fire hose you're getting at any particular time and help it soak in a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. That was something that happened a lot because as I was learning, yeah, it was hard to just understand everything until we start working in projects like Facebook Sun. I think everything started connecting. Just because I kind of feel like it was really important to like get to get it done, or that was when I started connecting more to understand. And I still feel like I gotta learn a lot more, uh, but I guess it would be more like having another task or projects. And yeah, I think like if we're learning something new, let's say we're learning about data input, I think it would be great if we have like three different, it has to be like different assignments with different variations of data input for us maybe to retain more. I think like more in doing it, that's the way that I learn more, like by doing it. Like things are gonna stick to me because it's conceptual. I forget a lot when they just like teach me by words, and if I try to take notes, it's kind of hard. Yeah, and that's my personal opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Christian?
Yeah, definitely. As Bill mentioned, that's the way to go, as we say, you know. We split the day into two in the beginning, you know, give us all the information in the beginning and then give us small tasks in the second half of the day to implement what you taught us in the first half.
Yeah, and these are like great feedback, right? And those are the things that I kind of would hope that everyone likes to share, right, amongst each other. Like this is for me, it's just a learning experience. I would think, you know, coming in from the previous people, like I think me and Pedro talked about what are the things that we can improve on for training Christian and Francisco was that, you know, we should emphasize shop drawing reading, because, you know, what we realized was that, you know, previously we're just training them to do units and, you know, using the takeoff program when they're not really knowing what they're supposed to draw, and that's very, you know, disheartening, right? For us to like keep referring back to like, oh, do you see this? Do you see that? So we really emphasized shop drawing at this one, but that's just like for us to evolve from. And then we can't really evolve unless we get suggestions and feedback from you guys. So this is great stuff.
Yeah, and that's when we started talking about maybe having a specific Revit model just for training. Like Steve Watts was asking, right? How can we tie all this together? So our group is more focused on the takeoff. So I gave them just a brief explanation of what the whole process is, starting from the bid section all the way till we install a unit in the field, but couldn't really get into a lot of it. Yes, maybe drafting since it's right before us, and maybe shop should be our priorities, maybe going more into depth. So a way to do that could be maybe creating some type of Revit job just for training that doesn't have any transitions, anything weird, just typical jam, corner, maybe even a small little door or something simple for training, right? Just so they can have their feet wet with training how to export taglines and all that good stuff. So hopefully in the near future, maybe that could be some type of option. Now hearing the feedback, because what we tried to do before we did training with Christian and Francisco, we tried to grab input from Reggie, Ryan, Edgar, myself, and then Eric, just trying to put all of our suggestions together, like what would work together. So we ended up deciding on, hey, high emphasis on shop drawings, because if you can read and understand a shop drawing, you can put that into a fab ticket in a unit. But yeah, I've been taking notes since you guys started, so I have some notes written down for training, and hopefully all of this gets improved later on in the near future.
Yes.
And also, just to mention again, like what, you know, Franciscan mentioned, like, you know, different people have different ways to learn, right? The way I teach is usually conceptual. Like I kind of want to just, I don't want to give you the answer until you really, you know, hit the wall, right? I'll keep asking questions until, you know, to kind of lead you to it. But I gotta admit that for me at least, you know, I gotta admit that it's different people have different learning styles, and we gotta figure out a way to minimize that by coming up with a better training program to, you know, tackle different ways of people learning. So.
Yep. So everyone has another question or comment? Otherwise, well, just like say thank you, Eric, Pedro, Tony, and everyone else that had the time to train us and have the patience.
Oh, and
Good
it
job,
goes back
guys.
to you guys too. You guys were very patient with us as well. So.
No, thank you
Good
guys
job,
for the
guys.
feedback.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good job, everyone. Good
Thank you.
class.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Good job.